Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor
and his cousin
gives you sports betting tips. I am your host, Professor Sides, and for the latest updates, information, and picks, you can follow me on Twitter at Professor Sides. You can follow my cousin Jared on Twitter at Cousin Jared. Today is late night Sunday, August 28th, 2022. That'll be morning time on Monday, August 29th, before you are hearing this episode. In case you're new here, I built a mathematical model that so the spread should be for every FBS college football game. That information, along with each team's power rating and a graded A, B, or C pick for every game of week one here this week, is available in the Google Sheet that is linked in the show's description to pick. Either if it's not going to be up there yet, it's because we haven't talked about the game. So by the end of the week, we'll have a pick on every game. That doesn't mean that I recommend you make a pick on every game as well. My goal in this episode is to share key information about this week's games, give you a few things to think on, explain why the model or we like a certain play or don't, in order for you to come up with picks you are comfortable with. I never recommend blindly tailing or fading any pick, rather to hear the justifications and thought processes to make sure y'all are fully on board with us or against us before investing your hard-earned money. As I go through the plays, remember there are no locks in gambling, so it'll give you our loves, likes, and leans to indicate my confidence level with respect to scaling wagers. Cousin Jared will also be utilizing a weighted unit scale this college football season. And as always, please remember that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to see it be profitable each and every week, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Cousin Jared, we survived the bad week of football that was week 0. It was football. Yeah. It was fun, I guess.
Yeah. It was a good
People in Ireland got free beer.
Yeah, and food. I mean, it sounds food, like, unless you're a Nebraska fan, it sounds like a really great getaway.
Which, to be fair, has been Nebraska football in general the last several years, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I hate to pile on, but I mean, the jokes are just there, right? Like at some point, we kind of have to make them. I mean, seeing the stats today,
they write themselves at this point.
They do, and seeing the stats today about how many games in a row he'd have to win just to reach like Bill Callahan level or something is. Yeah. And it's funny. I don't want to spend too much time on this. We got a lot of games to cover here, but I just have to say it's funny. We were talking last week about our inaugural episode 1 of this entire show a year ago, where you gave out Nebraska season preview, and I'll never forget this. I mean, the first episode you remember things because it was our first one, and again it was a terrible show, but I remember you talking about that, and you pulled out the quote from Scott Frost about how it was like acting like it was year 1 again or something. You had some quote that he said, and it was like. This doesn't feel good.
No. He was under investigation at the time for like illegal practices or something like that as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of things. Yeah.
A lot of things. And I'm like, and we're still here. Like,
yeah.
It feels like with sports, and probably coaches get fired too fast in general. We probably put too much blame on them in general. We're a little too quick on the trigger 100% in general. But you do kind of want like a year later to feel like you're moving in the right direction. Like something's going right, that you've got hope, you got whatever. And it's like, I feel like I don't know about moving backwards, but just in the same nonsense with Nebraska. And it's just crazy how we are in the same spot. It blows my mind.
Yeah, I think he's going to be gone before November, personally. So I think this is kind of still this fate, honestly.
I would have said that last year, though, the way things went, too.
That's true.
Again, here we are. So you just never know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get to today's show, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free, and the only way, assuming you turn notifications on, to ensure you don't miss any the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. Share with any others in the game. Hit us up on Twitter or drop a comment on YouTube. We love those and try to respond to as many as we can. Let's get to this week's games. All lines courtesy of BetOnline and accurate as of the time of this recording. We've got 18 games we're going to talk about today. Specifically, we will cover, I think, every game this week, whether it's on this episode or one of the other two. The 18 that we've got today are the picks we like the most. As of the numbers right now, numbers move. And so we'll talk about things we really like later in the week, or there's some other things that we really love too, but we're not really concerned about the number moving, or we love it, but it's like the number isn't great right now. And it's kind of in a dead spot. It's like, if it gets a little worse, it's no big deal, that sort of thing. So we've kind of strategically picked out the 18 games that we think are the most important to talk about early in the week, to grab early because the number's a good one, or just something that we really like. We're like, hey, we just want to let you know ahead of time, and we'll cover more games later. I mean, we're going to start off with a doozy here. So, 7 o'clock Eastern, Thursday night, West Virginia at Pittsburgh. I'm so excited we're playing this game again.
Yes.
Week one, I don't know how I feel about that. I think we covered this on the in the season previews, which if you haven't watched those yet, you still got time to do a lot of season bets. Whole webpage dedicated to those. I think we talked about this. Week one is kind of like, I don't know how I feel about playing week one, but whatever. I'm glad it's happening.
Right. Yeah, I vividly remember what year was it, like 2007 or whatever it was, when West Virginia was one game away from going to the national championship game, and Pitt was not having a great season and completely ruined West Virginia's chance to play for the national championship.
Yep.
So just the fact that this game is coming back, it's a great way to kick off. Yeah, it's a great way to kick off the first full weekend of college football season.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be on Pittsburgh here, laying a touchdown. It's a B grade pick for me on them. The model says this should be Pittsburgh minus 9.6. The model isn't really too much of a fan of West Virginia. It thinks that Pitt will be okay. Just trading out one quarterback for another, right? It's kind of I feel like we see this in the NFL sometimes, right? Where it's like a quarterback leaves and another one comes in that's like just as good. You're like, okay, whatever, no big deal. We've seen that a lot, the shuffling around. And I think the model just kind of thinks Pittsburgh will be okay at home. Laying a touchdown, like I said, B grade pick. I like it here at 7. And I personally want to get this in at 7 because I just don't want this number to go up any and get to 7.5, because a model says 9.6. At 7.5, there's just not a lot of value here. Knowing that Pittsburgh could easily win by 7, I think is where you've got some of the value, and it might go down, but it might go up. And like I said, going up is just not where I want to be at. I just think Pittsburgh is the better team at home. I don't mind laying 7 with them. So B grade pick for me starting off on Thursday. Because Jared, what do you think?
I think that you locking in at 7 was a good call because it's already at 7.5 in a lot of places. So I think.
Oh gosh!
I think that was a good call there on the 7. So here's the deal. I am not going to be on Pitt in this game. That's for sure. I haven't decided to pull the trigger on West Virginia, but if I were eyeing a side, that would definitely be where I was looking. Honestly, I just have too many questions about Pitt. So one of the people I work with always refers to like a healthy tension in the workplace. And that's part of what makes a workplace work and makes things go, is there's usually a healthy tension there that really helps that. I don't understand what happened with Pat Narduzzi and Whipple, who was the offensive coordinator last year. They had a wonderful season on offense. I mean, Pickett played great for the first time since Narduzzi was at Pitt. The offense was really carrying the load there. But something just wasn't right. And you kind of were hearing it even at the end of the season that relationship wasn't good between the offensive coordinator and the head coach. And Whipple, takes off from Pitt, which clearly to me seems like a better situation than where he ended up at Nebraska, ironically enough. And
I think a lot of places would be at this point.
Yes, exactly. So this whole thing.
When Scott Frost is throwing you under the bus, talking about how you've got to learn to whatever. I don't remember what he said. When Frost is throwing you under the bus, you're week 0. You're in trouble.
Yes, exactly. And your offensive linemen have been throwing up 40 times during camp or whatever that was. But anyway, we won't even get into that. So it just seems like a really weird situation there. And when Narduzzi has kind of been given the reins or tried to exert too much control over the offense historically, it has not gone well for Pitt. So in my opinion, I think I have a lot more faith in JT Daniels transferring from Georgia to West Virginia and Graham Harrell being the new offensive coordinator at West Virginia. I think I have more faith in them than I do at Pitt. I think Pitt still has an edge defensively here, and so that's kind of what's giving me hesitation, just because I think JT Daniels could be a good quarterback and Graham Harrell is a good offensive coordinator. I'm not quite sold on West Virginia yet. So right now, no play for me on this on the side. I'm eyeing West Virginia if I do make one, and the total here, nothing really appeals to me. I think there's too many questions on both sides for me to feel good about a total.
Yeah, and you talked about the 7.5. Again, it's kind of one of those at 7.5. I don't like it at all. I just like the 7.
Right.
We can never be perfectly accurate on this, because even if I were to, it takes an hour to record this. We got to lock picks in on BetStamp just so we have our receipts. I think everyone kind of feels like we're pretty trustworthy people at this point. I just want to have those receipts anyway. And so by the time you lock, and then we get like prepped, and I get like the stuff copied into to the program here, the record, and then if there's edits and uploads, like there's just this time lag, which is unfortunate. That's why it's also important to have a lot of books, because different books you can chop around. Some books are a little slower than others. We only use one book to make our picks, but at 7.5, I feel like it's lost all its value. And to me, at 7.5, it's a stay away. I don't like West Virginia at that point. I personally just want 10 for West Virginia. At 10, I'd start looking at it. But at 7.5, it's just bleh, At 7, at least you got that push protection on a touchdown, which is a very common ending.
Yeah, and not to get us too sidetracked here, but we've already kind of discussed this a little bit, at least amongst ourselves, about how the key numbers in football are so different than they are in like baseball or something like that. And so just a half-point line movement, like you said, can make it to where it's B grade to where it's a stay away. So these key numbers are just so important in football.
Yeah, and I feel like we're gonna have to like fly through some of these games, or we're totally going over an hour. Here, so I'm sorry, Drew, but I just have to ask. You're talking about Jason Daniels, and just a thought popped in my mind. What's the game where you have to like type in the things and it answers it, and there's like it's the trivia
Sporkle.
How many more schools are we from JT Daniels having his own one about which schools he's been in? I feel like
I think we probably have to be one more, because like 3 I feel like is not uncommon now. But I feel like 4.
It's true. Yeah. 4 is kind of the okay. I just feel like I can't even remember all this. I'm to this point. I'm like, was he the one that went from? I was like, he was Georgia, and then was Ohio State or USC. I honestly can't remember which one was it at the beginning.
Yeah. It was USC, Georgia, West Virginia.
Okay. It's like you said, what's common? Just some of these guys moving around. They never play down there. Or they only play like for a season, and I'm just like, I can't remember which school these guys are at.
Exactly.
Like I said, we're gonna moving on here. So Thursday, a 7:00 Eastern kickoff here. Another game that I think the line is pretty advantageous right now that I would lock in. Oklahoma State here at -20.5, especially at -105 odds. It's a B grade pick. It's a B grade pick for me for a couple of reasons. Number one, I like the number under 21. I think 21 is a pretty reasonable outcome. It's only a B grade pick though, because 20 is also a pretty reasonable outcome. And the higher you get on these numbers, the more just kind of variability you get. Not by as much. And I'll talk about this throughout the week. So I want to kind of lay the foundation for thinking about this, because I don't think people realize mathematically that the probabilities don't fall off the map quite as much as you think they might as the numbers get higher. What I mean by that is if you're on a bet stamp or something like that, and it'll show you your closing line value or something, which is interesting stuff to keep track of and just kind of see what's going on. It's not just them. It's pretty standard. What'll happen is these things will show like a 5-point differential, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's only 5% value." And I'm like, "It's more than that mathematically." Like at the high numbers, it doesn't fall off quite as much as you think. So there's still some value here. The model says for this one 21.4. So you're still crossing like a fairly key-ish number for 21, and it's still fairly key. And people are like, "Well, how many games is it 21?" We talk about. I don't want to dive too deep in the woods here, but we have to remember, we have to think about conditional probability and not just probability here. And so I really hope I'm not losing my audience hanging with me. I'm going to teach. I'm going to try to explain this as simple as possible. But if you were to look at all college football games and probabilities, just take probabilities, just say how many games divided by how many total, land at that number divided by total games, right? 21 isn't extremely common, but we're not talking about all college football games, because we're talking about specifically games where one team is at home and is a lot better than the other. And now when you shrink to that sample size, the probability of landing on 21 is a lot higher. It's actually a lot higher that this game lands on 21 than 7 or 3. And you're like, wait, 3 is the most common number in football. Yes, in the NFL, absolutely, probably for almost any game. But the probability this game lands on 21 because of who it is and where it is much higher than 3 and 7. So still a fairly key number, maybe not as much as if it's lower, but it's still not a bad number here. So I like being on the right side of 21.
I can't stop smiling. This is the best conversation we've ever had on this show. Nobody's probably watching at this point anymore. But no, I'm taking this way off the rails here. So your probabilities on 21 right here. You could say the exact same thing about totals. Like you're not conditioning for games that are expected to end around that total, which is why people get so tired of me talking about 55 or 52 or 58, whatever the number is. But those are so key. The probabilities are so much higher when you condition for a game that's expected to end around that number anyway.
Absolutely.
So that's so important to keep in mind. So I think this was a
absolutely. And the same thing when you talk about, and we'll talk later about North Texas, right? That total like around 70 or whatever. Like 55 is not a key number for that game, right? Because it's probably not going to be. It's not that it's not going to be there. Like it could land around on 55. Absolutely. It's just it's not as likely. It's much more likely to land on 67 or 66 or whatever than it is 55. So absolutely, we have to keep these things in mind. So we don't just want to throw things out as the numbers get bigger or different or whatever, but we also just don't want to. We just got to find the balance of that pendulum. Anyway, like I said, I like being on the right side of 21 here at 20.5. I think it's valuable. It's not an A grade play because it is a big number, and laying big numbers isn't that exciting. And there's not a ton of value here from the model, but I think at home Oklahoma State I think can run away with this one on a Thursday night. And like I said, I like the odds here, so I'm on the Cowboys on this one. Cousin Jared, what do you got?
Yeah, no play from me here. You know me, always looking at the under. Central Michigan likes to run the ball, keep the clock running. Oklahoma State, obviously, good defense last year, lost a lot of production from that defense. I expect the defense is still going to be pretty decent.
And the coordinator.
Yeah, and the coordinator going to Ohio State. Spencer Sanders, I'm not completely sold on him. You're 15.
You just never know what you're going to get.
Exactly. You're 15 and not sold on him. So definitely, if I had a lean here, one way or the other, come check with me later in the week. Maybe I decide to make a play on the under here, but nothing pops out to me right now.
Yeah, and that's the benefit to have multiple shows throughout the week too. If the number moves, again, we'll loop back to it real quick and say, hey, we already covered it. Number moved, and now we like this, and so we kind of update those thoughts. Friday night, a couple games here. One that, look, it's going to make our television screens because there's not many games on a Friday night. Yeah. But Cousin Jared, I'm a little upset with you that you're making us talk about this game. There's a lot of good games this weekend, and we're going to cover all of them. But you're killing my buzz here a little bit of my college football buzz of having to talk about Temple and Duke. This game is going to be ugly and pathetic, and I honestly don't know why we're talking about it. I do know why we're talking about it, but
of course
I'm still a little upset.
Yeah,
this game is going to be just garbage. It's going to be ugly football. I'm tired of ugly football. We saw a lot of ugly football. My goodness,
we did.
That Nevada New Mexico State game was painful to watch.
Between that and the Vanderbilt and Hawaii game, it was like 12:30 in the morning, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah, I did the same question. Yeah, I was like, why am I not sleeping right now?
Yes.
I'll let you tee us up here since this is your baby here.
Okay, yeah, of course. Everybody knows where I'm going on this. What I can say is very few times that I call out specific players last year, but the quarterback for Temple, DeJuan Mathis, he just had times last season where he just looked completely rattled and wasn't playing very well. Temple was a team that I definitely like to play the under on quite a bit. I also know quite a bit about the new head coach at Duke. Elko came from Texas A&M, and I have to say I've watched a lot of Texas A&M defense in my time, and some of that was pretty bad. I have to say that his defense was the most schematically sound defense that I've probably watched in my time watching A&M closely. So I think he's going to have Duke's defense ready to play relative to an offense like Temple. And again, I just don't trust Temple to put up a lot of points in general. And Duke, well, this is gonna make you laugh. The offensive coordinator at Duke came from Memphis, so we know how I feel about that. So anyway, just a lot of variables here where I think it's two not good teams, and all I'm asking is for two not good teams to not score a lot of points. It seems pretty good to me. And 52 is a key number, so official play from me here. I'm locking in the under 52 with Temple at Duke.
Okay, and again, I'll work on getting
you don't have to watch it to make the money, as we like to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll work on getting the totals up here in the banners for later shows. I haven't go to that in, but Cousin Jared here likes under 52. Like you said, you don't have to watch it to make the monies. Like I said, I'll probably end up watching it because there's not many Friday games, but I'm gonna hate watch this. I'll take Duke. I'll take Duke -7. The model says 7's a pretty good number. I like the -103. My thoughts on this game are right now. And you never know where the number's going to move, right? And so I think 7's a pretty solid number. My thought here is kind of if it's at -103, you're getting basically even money on a decently hung number, or if that indicates that it's going to drop to 6.5. Laying 6.5 isn't a bad idea either. I don't really know what to expect from either one of these teams. I don't think either one of them is going to be worth anything this year. You have to assume Duke's going to be fired up for a home game in one of the few games that they're going to be favored in all season. I can't imagine them being favored in more than a couple. So they're going to be fired up to play. I'll lay the 7 with them. Only a C-grade pick. It's not one I like. Cousin Jared has the better play on this one with the total than I do with the side. A Friday game that is probably worth watching, Illinois at Indiana. Illinois coming off of that shellacking of Wyoming, and there's a lot of these that we'll kind of talk about a little bit here coming off of the week 0 games. We'll talk about it a lot next week coming off of all these week 1 games. When you have one data point, it's really hard to know how much is one team versus how much is the other versus how much is randomness. I mean, when you look at the game last year, we talked about this in week 1 with the Nebraska Northwestern, or week 0 with the Nebraska Northwestern game. And I said, look, one game shouldn't be all that you talk about. I talk about this baseball all the time. You shouldn't just say well, this pitcher's done this in 3 games. I'm like, who cares? The totality of the data should weigh a whole lot more. And we saw with that with Nebraska, that one game was really weird where they just destroyed Northwestern last year. Not that Northwestern was good, but honestly, with the way that last year went, you would have thought that would have been a one-score game as well.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing now that we're having to deal with here of how much do we take stock of the week 0 games? Does it matter? And how much is one team versus the other? I will say Illinois looked really good against Wyoming, or Wyoming looked really bad. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think we'll talk about that a lot here. It'll be the main talking point is how much do you buy into that? I mean, Illinois looked pretty good. I'm taking them and getting 3 points. It's an A-grade pick for me at Indiana. The model says that it should actually be Illinois -3. So getting 3 points with Illinois is a fantastic play, in my opinion. You can also look at money line. I think the wrong team's favored here. And again, I want to lock this in at 3. Maybe later in the week you get 3.5, and that's even better. You tack on a little bit more. I'm not really sure how you want to play that specifically. 3.5 would be even better, but I mean, 3 is a fantastic get for me here because, like I said, I think it should be Illinois -3. I just think they're going to be a whole lot better than Indiana. What I saw from Illinois last week and what we saw from Illinois' defense, especially down the stretch, gives you some reason for optimism that they may be able to really frustrate Indiana and really just dominate, control this game, even though it's on the road. I like Illinois here. I think they went outright. So if you want that money line play, I think that's a smart pick. A-grade play for me. Cousin Jared, what do you think?
Let me take you through my process here, viewers. So this line kind of seemed off to me. I thought that it would have been flipped around, like you mentioned, Illinois favored at least by 1.5, something like that. And so that was my original thought. I saw what the model said, and I really liked that Illinois had a week time to get their feet under them. Not too challenging of a game, but get some reps at game speed and everything. Like you said, I don't know what Indiana is going to do with this Illinois defense. I'm not acting like they're the 1985 Chicago Bears or anything, but they're pretty solid, I think, and especially against a team like Indiana. So, I know I've said it during college football last year. I said it during college basketball. I've said it during MLB. I'll say it again. I love a wrong team favored situation, and this definitely qualifies. Professor mentioned the money line here, but you can't pass up 3 points whenever you can get it. So official play for me here. I'm taking the 3 points with Illinois.
Yeah, I agree. Late game, gets to overtime, whatever, tie game late, you're like, hey, you still got that push protection. I always talk about it's really valuable having those 3 points in your pocket.
Hey, if you go to quintuple overtime, you're guaranteed to win at +3. So there you go. Well, I guess you're not technically guaranteed to win. You could return. I guess somebody could return a fumble for 2.
This is true, or
and win by 4.
Yeah, you could. Could. Yeah, that would be really weird. I don't think the probability that's 0
so
with
basically guaranteed to win if you get to like 4 overtimes.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. To the Saturday games at noon Eastern, Colorado State at Michigan. I want to lock this one in now based off of the movement that we saw last year. My hunch is that this number goes up, especially when the betting public gets involved. At 27, I think it's a great play, and I want to grab it at 27 before it goes to 28. Early on in the season, I'm going to mostly trust the model. As we go on later in the season, we'll kind of start seeing there's going to be a team or two that the model is going to be biased on. With over 100 teams, there's just no way. And like last year, we'll talk about them this year, Buffalo. It kind of had an infatuation with Buffalo last year, and it took us kind of a while to figure that out.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's going to be more right than wrong on most teams. And so early on, in general, I think I mentioned this before, it kind of just makes sense to trust the model. UConn, a prime example of that last week, just kind of say like, hey, there's a discrepancy here. It's going to be right more than it's not. And that's what I think here. The model says it should be Michigan -30.2. Again, if I was the odds makers, I'd be hanging 31 on this one just because I'd be afraid of, Joe Public coming in hard on Michigan, especially, late night Friday night bets for Saturday morning. I really think this is going to get to 28 personally, so I want to lock in 27. There's a decent amount of value here because Michigan can win by 27. We got the push protection. They can win by 28. They can win by 31. There's a lot of numbers around here that Michigan could easily win by. I think they're going to kick the crap out of Colorado State. I have no idea what's going on with this weird quarterback thing. The whole we're going to start one guy this week and one guy the next week. I kind of think that helps us here because now, like, at least in the first 2 weeks, each guy's going to really go out. I mean, it could backfire because they could press, but I mean, I don't think it's going to backfire against Colorado. I think they're going to get rolling, and I think it's going to be like, I want to pour it on, and I just think Michigan runs away with it. So I love this pick here at Michigan at -27. We're going to take some big dogs. I took some big dogs last week, like with UConn, but if the number's right for a favorite, I think the favorite's the play here at Michigan. A-grade play for me. Cousin Jared, what do you got?
So it bit me last season. I was too slow to jump on the Michigan bandwagon, laying some of these bigger numbers at the beginning of the season because the model I think was higher on Michigan than The odds makers were.
Yeah,
at the beginning of the season.
it started off. Yeah, it started liking them like around like week 3 or 4 was when it was kind of like I started turning it on there, and it worked pretty well for like 6-7 weeks in a row.
Yeah. So, but I think I'm going to make the same mistake again this year. I just can't get there with this line. Just Michigan's offense. I mean, it's solid, but like it's just not spectacular. And you look at a number like 20, 27, 28, and you're like, I mean, they could win this game by 24 or 21. Like, what do they care? You know, what I will say is that with McCarthy starting next week, which, you know, by all accounts, he's a more dynamic quarterback than McNamara is. And Hawaii coming to town, like what number would you have to hang to play Hawaii? Like, if you tell me that I get to lay 45 points with Michigan next week, I'm probably like, yeah, sign me up for laying 45.
I probably would lay 45.
Yeah. So anyway, just a preview.
Hold on. Like, let's see what would the model say right now on this? We can figure this out. The model right now would have 18-4. Model would say about 45.
Yeah,
and I'm with you. I'd probably lay the 45.
Yeah, exactly. I lay the 45 points. So
I probably would need. Yeah, I probably would need at least 50 points. If you give me 50, I'd be like, sure, I'll take Hawaii. That's a lot of points, but I'd hate it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't like it.
Yeah. So just a preview for next week, people. Maybe I'm laying 45 with Michigan next week with Hawaii coming to town. But as of right now, I'm not touching this game.
Yeah. Another noon Eastern game here in North Carolina at Appalachian State. North Carolina struggled in week
at times.
0.
Yeah.
At times. Offense looks great. I think they're going to score a lot of points this season. What's new, right? I mean, this was the same UNC we saw last year that we talked about, ad nauseum, a team that had stretches, and Wake Forest too, like that North Carolina Wake Forest game was just a blast where it's like, I don't know if either defense is going to show up, probably not, but the offenses are good. And I mean, it seems like North Carolina is signing up for more of the same this year against an FCS opponent that, like, I don't even think I realized the game was happening until it was about halfway over. And then I was like, whoa, like, what's going on here? They get to travel to Appalachian State.
Well, Florida A&M was down like 20 players due to ineligibility, right? So
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
wow.
It was like, it was some sketchy stuff going on. Yeah.
Appalachian State, much better.
Yes.
Appalachian State, a fairly tough place to play. I mean, not like obviously like the big boys, but I mean, like for that being a small school, like it punches above its weight, I guess is what I would say.
Definitely.
Rabid fan base there, of course, coming from their days of dominating, back when it was 1AA football, of course. Basically, it's about a pick 'em. I'll take the point with North Carolina. It's only a lean. I don't really like this number. I don't know what the heck's going to happen in this game. We're talking about this game today, not because of my pick, but because of yours, cousin Jared. So I will let you have the floor.
Well, what I would say is a lot of people are paying attention to this game because as of yesterday, before North Carolina played, they were a 2.5-point favorite, and now that has come all the way down to where they're getting a point. So, but of course, everybody knows I'm looking at the total here, and earlier in the day it was 55. It is now up to 56. But if you watched any of that North Carolina and Florida A&M game, the professor mentioned it. This North Carolina defense questionable. At best.
Best.
And I think a lot of the comments that I was seeing on Twitter was, especially from like North Carolina fans and people who watched a lot last season, this is the exact same thing. Undisciplined on defense, missing tackles, blown assignments, and everything like that. And if you give up, I don't even know how many points they ended up giving up, but like 24 to Florida A&M. I mean, App State's going to probably score more than that. I think the easiest way I could say this, I think somebody in this game is getting to like 35, and I have plenty of faith.
40.
Yeah, and I think the other team is going to have no problem getting to 21. So, like I said, earlier in the day, this was at 55. People have wisened up a little bit. It's gone up to 56. But 56, 57, 58, all still fairly key numbers. So I feel good about the over 56 here. I know that when I take an over, it gets people's attention here. So here's your flashing red lights. Yeah, flashing red lights here. I'm going to go with the over 56 in North Carolina App State. I don't see either side really getting slowed down too much.
Yeah, I almost had a heart attack when we were talking and you said you were going to take it over. It's very rare. So if you're new to us, if you didn't see the college football shows last year, doesn't happen a lot when cousin Jared likes the over. I think when Jack was on a couple times, I think he made the comment. He was like, if cousin Jared's taking the over, like I'm taking it with him. Like I'm just gonna blind follow. I always say don't blindly follow it. I mean, listen to what he said, but I mean, he's got some good reasons. So I tend to agree. I kind of think that like one team's going to get to 40, and the hope is both to, because then it's a fun game, right? It would be fun if like this total gets blown out of the water by like the early third quarter. Both teams
exactly. Exactly. And let the record show, Jack also accused me of not liking fun, since I always like to bet the under. And my response was, but I like winning. So
Yes,
there you go.
Yeah. I think Jake has as well. I think we've all kind of accused.
Yeah.
You've been accused of that a lot too.
Yeah.
So cousin Jerry, they're on the over. Like I said, I tend to agree. Obviously, over 55 is better.
Yeah.
But
that's gone.
It seems. Yeah, it seems low. I'm really surprised this total is not like 62. Like 62 would be a number I would have thought.
Yeah. I don't see this going back to 55 at this point.
Right. I would agree. I can't see why it would.
There's some 55 and a halves out there, but it's mostly 56 at this point.
It's probably more, we talk about key numbers, it's probably more about grab. And again, I think it's going to get into the 60s. So I don't think it really matters where you play it at. But just in case, you just never know. You always want to get the best number. I'm like you, I think play it earlier in the week because getting 56 is better than what if it gets to 58, 59. Those are also kind of key numbers here as well. 56 and a half, 57 and a half, probably not as big of a deal. But when it gets to 58, 59, now it's, again, a bigger deal. I'd still play it over that, but I'd rather have 56 now than what if it accidentally closes, 59, and now you're laying an extra field goal for no reason.
Right.
One last game here to talk about at the noon Eastern slot. Rutgers getting a touchdown at Boston College. The model says that this game should be Boston College minus 6.6. So a little bit of an edge here on Rutgers getting 7 and even money. So I'll take Rutgers here with a B grade play. About the 7 and the even money, it's probably relatively equivalent to maybe like a minus 115 at 7.5. And the same thing in the model would like that as well, because again, the model thinks it should be 6.5. So not a ton of value, only a B grade pick, but I don't really think much of either one of these teams. I don't really know what's going to happen. And so I just kind of want to put as many points in my back pocket as I can here. So I think Rutgers is worth a look. It's not my favorite play, but I think it's worth a look here if you're getting 7 at even money, or if you're getting 7.5 with a small amount of juice. Cousin Jada, what do you think?
No play for me right now, but stick around, folks, for the shows later in the week. Be watching me on BetStamp and on Twitter, because this is certainly a situation where I could see myself talking myself into Rutgers here. I kept waiting for Boston College's offense to come around last year, and it never quite did, even after Djokovic came back towards the end of the season. And Rutgers is going to have a dud every once in a while, but man, they are good at uglying up games at times. Yep. And so just, without knowing what the model says, just seeing that I'm getting a touchdown with a team that's good at uglying things up, another team, not a great offense, even money, getting the 7, to me, Rutgers just seems pretty appealing. So no official play as of yet. If this goes up to 7.5 at minus 110 or 7.5 minus 105 or something, even more value. So this is one wait. If the line goes down, pass on it. But maybe you get a 7.5 or something here and feel a bit better about it. So like I said, stick around with this for the rest of the week. This may be something I talk myself into with Rutgers.
All right, so the afternoon games, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. Tulsa at Wyoming. We talked about Illinois already. Wyoming looked terrible. I it's a little bit of both teams. The model kind of splits it pretty evenly on that first game. Doesn't take that second game, and then now it kind of can start really waiting and say, oh, it's actually this team or the other. At this point, though, Wyoming takes a big hit after how pathetic they looked against Illinois. I want to be all over Tulsa here. I think they're the right side. I love laying 5. 5's a dead number, but I want to get it before it gets to 6, because that's a possibility that lands at 6 and it pushes. I want to get it before it goes to 7. I never really know exactly where the number's going to go, so I try not to predict that. I just think it's more likely, my hunch is it's more likely that people are going to say, Wyoming was terrible. Look at what happened. And people are going to back Tulsa throughout the week, and this number's going to go up. I don't know that. Yeah. That's my thought. So I'm comfortable locking in Tulsa minus 5. The model says that should be Tulsa minus 7.4. So the model thinks 7.5 makes a lot of sense. I just don't see why people would back this Wyoming team with as bad as they looked. Like I said, I just think lock it in here as long as it's lower than 6. It's an A grade play for me. A lot of value, knowing they can win by 6 or 7 are pretty reasonable outcomes. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't normally do this on the show, but FanDuel has Tulsa minus 3.5 right now. So just know that's out there for people interested. So, Professor, if you said it, I didn't catch it. What does the model say this line should be?
7.4.
You may talk me into taking Tulsa because Wyoming looked bad. They looked really bad. I don't really have much to say about this game other than I think that Wyoming's going to have trouble scoring points. And Tulsa, historically, I don't know much about them this season, but historically they've had pretty good defense. So I would say that if Wyoming had trouble scoring points against Illinois, I don't think things are going to get a ton better with Tulsa. Obviously, they're at home, and Tulsa is going to be a step down from Illinois for sure. But still, I mean, a big step forward for the Wyoming offense, and they're going to lose by 14 or 10 as opposed to getting blown out by Illinois. So you've given me something to think about here, Professor. I may be adding this to the list of lines to watch, and may make a decision later in the week on this one, because man, that Wyoming offense just seems really bad.
They do. Watching that game, once Illinois got up by 17 or 20 or whatever it was just like, I just don't think Wyoming can score enough. It just felt like they had one drive where maybe they could get it going, but it feels like an offense, and there's some bad offense like this where it feels like everything has to go right, and one bad play pushes them back. And when you need 13 play drives, like the NFL is more disciplined, you can get away with that stuff. But in college, if you're relying on 13 play drives, you're going to end up with a holding call or a sack or a negative 3-yard run, and it just falls apart quickly. And it's not like the triple option with Navy where it's like they can still get 8 yards on a run because of the way that offense works, but or the old Navy, right? Not the newer one. But Air Force, whoever, right? It just seems like this Wyoming offense just gets stuck in the mud, and they just can't put it all together for an entire drive consistently. I don't see how they hang in there in this game. Like I said, I love Tulsa here, especially laying a number less than 6. Like I said, I think get this one early. Yep. Similar concept here at 3:30 Eastern, Arizona and San Diego State. I want to lock this one in before it goes to 7. I think San Diego State is decided to be on here. We talked about Arizona in the season preview episode. I don't think Arizona is going to be any good at all. Model says for this game that it should be San Diego State minus 10. And again, early on in the season, we don't have a ton to talk about. We can talk a little bit about returning production. We already kind of talked about that I think we covered both these teams actually in the season preview episodes. So go back and watch those if you want. I want to spend a ton of time on it here, but we haven't seen a lot of film. It's like I said, I'm just kind of trusting the model here, and the model is taking in previous year's data. It's taking in recruiting stuff. It's taking in all that returning production, which you talked about was baked in with Hawaii and still, missed the boat on how bad they would be. But it's making it all that nonsense, and the model thinks 6.5 is way too low. I tend to agree. Like I said, I'm surprised this isn't more like 8. A number less than 7. I love it. A-grade play for me on the Aztecs at home. I think they're going to make Arizona look like fools here in their oper. Cousin Jared, what do you think?
So Miss Cousin Jared would tell you that I'm hard-headed. The model may learn. I have a hard time learning sometimes. There were many times last season where I should have been on San Diego State and I wasn't. And just like Michigan, not going to be on San Diego State here either. I'm higher on Arizona than most people are. I think DeLauro, the quarterback transferred from Washington State to Arizona, is light years better. We covered all this in the season preview show, but I think he's light years better than any quarterback they had there last year. San Diego State defense, I think, is going to be good. What are they going to be able to do offensively? I don't know. Maybe Arizona won't be able to stop them anyway. I think there's just too many question marks. If this gets to 7, I would definitely lean towards Arizona as opposed to San Diego State. But again, let the record show the model was right on San Diego State and I was wrong. So I would probably tell you listen to the model here, but I'm just telling you kind of where my head's at.
I think, I hear what you're saying there. My thought is, number one, the Mountain West was a little bit weird last year, and the model definitely struggled with that conference at times where it was like that conference just got very zigzaggy. But I think a lot of it had to do with when it played each other. When it was non-conference stuff, I think the model did a lot better on it. Yeah. This feels like a game, and we joked last year ad nauseum about BYU being Pac-12 South champs and that stuff. Yeah. I think when the Pac-12 obviously down for a long time now, but when these smaller conferences play the Pac-12, they get up for it. They want to play hard. Not that they always don't want to play hard, but they want to make a statement. They're not letting off. They're not going to get sidetracked. I mean, they're not going to take plays off, that sort of thing. And I think this is a statement game for San Diego State. I think the fact that I think that people are seeing Arizona Pac-12, and I agree with you. I think they'll be better than they were before, but I mean, they're still going to be. We still talk. Their win total is 2.5.
They were really bad last year.
They were, like I said, I think their win total is like 2.5. Like they're going to be really bad. Like we agree, like they might be a little bit better, but that means it's a 3 wins. Maybe 4 if things break right for them. But it's going to be a long year for them still. And I think San Diego State is just in a different class. And I think people may be seeing this thing like, Pac-12 school, they can hang in there. Like, I just don't think they are. I think San Diego State makes a statement here.
Yep.
Like I said, I love laying this less than 7. I wonder how many more Michigan references we can have for the rest of this episode.
Michigan or Nebraska. I can make one on every game.
There you go. Another 3:30 Eastern game. Because I meant to go back and watch this. Do you remember, but we talked about this game specifically in the season preview episode. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what I said the spread should be? Do you remember that conversation? I really don't remember.
I feel like you said that at the end of the last season, you would have had Houston favored by like 5 or 6, something like that. Maybe it was only 2. It was between 2 and 5.
And I think I said something like, it shouldn't be that high. And I think you and Jake were both like, it should be 10. And I was like, that seems a little bit high.
I said that I would play Houston at the 10. I do remember saying that.
Okay. I wish I would have gone back and watched it. Today got busy, but I was thinking, I'm pretty sure I remember that conversation. Yeah. Line's 4. Model says 4. So Model says there's no edge on this. I've got a B play on Houston at -4. I'm curious to hear your take on this. My thought is I get that the model says 4, and like I said, in general, I'm going to trust the model for most of the season, especially until we start figuring out kind of who it's biased on, and then we'll start kind of zigging zagging a little bit. But early on, I'm going to mostly trust it. And I think 4 is a solid number for this, right? You kind of got a dead zone between 4 and 6.
Yeah.
I just think that Houston is in a different class of UTSA, and I think this is a good chance to make a statement for them. I don't think when the season's over, the metrics are going to say that Houston's light years ahead of UTSA. I just think there's a little bit of a divide here, and I think they can go on the road and win by 6 or 7. I think it's a good chance for the. I think they want to make a statement here on the road.
Yeah.
They could win by 3, and that's why it's only a B grade pick for me, because they could absolutely win this game by 3, and we've lost our play. So that's like the biggest fear is Houston win by 3. But I think Houston wins. It's not a big number. I think laying 4 makes a lot of sense here. I think also get this one earlier in the week. I think it's going to go up. I think the perception is that Houston's so much better than UTSA. And again, like I talked about, I'm not sure that's true. I think they're about a touchdown better than UTSA, which is they're definitely better than them, but I don't think they're 10 points better than them necessarily. But I think the perception is that I think this number goes up. Again, I never exactly know. When I make these predictions, I'm probably like 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4. So I'm going to miss one of them.
Yeah.
One of the numbers is going to go a different direction. I'd love this to go down to 3, but I feel like this probably closes more like 5.5 to 6. So laying 4, at least having the push, and in the event they win the game, 31-27 or something, I think offers a little bit of value. I like Houston B grade pick. Don't love it though. I'd love 3, but at 4, just a B grade pick. Because Jared, I know you like Houston a lot. We talked about it in the preview. So lay it out for us why Houston's the right side here.
Yeah. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is. First of all, I'm laying the 4 points with Houston, and I'm making it a 2-unit play. So this is my best bet of the week, probably, unless a line goes crazy somewhere or I learn something new throughout the week. 2-unit play here, laying the 4 with Houston. I just, everywhere I look, I see advantages for Houston. I don't really see anywhere on the field that UTSA has an advantage. And UTSA is an excellent CUSA team, but Houston is a very good AAC team, basically Big 12 team at this point. So I can't find any advantages for UTSA, and UTSA is not sneaking up on anybody this year. Maybe they would have earlier in the season, like Illinois at the beginning of last year, Memphis when they went in and won that game. Maybe you'd say they snuck up on people. They are not sneaking up on anybody this year. Houston is going to be prepared and ready to go in this game. I think there's going to be a lot of fans at the game in San Antonio, honestly. I mean, still UTSA advantage, but I think there's going to be a lot of Houston fans there. I think that they're just in a different class. Now, okay, so this week, for what it is, 2-unit play. Love Houston here. Lay the 4 points. Next week, our friends, the Kansas Jayhawks, are coming to Houston to play the Cougars. Let me tell you, that is, I love Houston here. I have a feeling I may like somebody else next week in the game that Houston's playing in. So again, love Houston this week, but just a little preview for next week.
In Houston?
Yes, in Houston, yeah.
The model says that should be Houston by about 20.
That's a lot of points.
It's a lot of points.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And that was, I think, one of the things I was thinking as I was going through making my plays, and we do this independently, of course. I was just thinking UTSA is a really good Conference USA team, but Houston's a really good American athletic team, and the American is much better than Conference USA. And the only counter I have to that is the model is taking all of that into account. The model's captured. The model still says 4 is a good number. That's the only counter I have to that. But other than that, trust in the model, I just can't get past, like you said, I think Houston's more like the Big 12 team at this point. They would hang right in the middle with most of those teams, a notch behind Oklahoma, probably a notch behind Texas is talent. You never know what Texas is actually going to do. We'll talk about them later in the week as well, quarterback nonsense. But otherwise, they're right in the middle talent-wise. I mean, they're not that much worse talent-wise than Baylor is. They're about talent-wise with the TCU. I mean, they're right in the middle talent-wise with West Virginia. I mean, they're right with all these teams. Yeah. And I just can't get past that. So both of us on Houston, you get to play for Cousin Jared, his best bet of the week, and I'll back them as well with a B grade play. Wish I could get 3, but I don't mind laying the 4 personally. Yeah. 4 p.m. Eastern, Troy at Mississippi. Mississippi is a 21.5 point favorite, but it isn't even money. It's a C grade play for me on Ole Miss. The reason why there still is a little bit of an advantage here. The model says it should be 22.5. So at even money. Not that 22 is the most common number. It does happen occasionally, but the even money offers value. It's less about the 21.5 and more about the even money part. Obviously, I'd like 21 better, so it's only a C grade play for me at this number. If it drops to 21, especially if the odds aren't juiced too heavily, then I'd probably feel comfortable adding another unit, so something later in the week that I might do. But I don't mind the 21.5 just because it's the even money. Mississippi might win this game by 40, and if that's the case, great. And if not, at least I've got an even money play, and that offers, I think, more value than most people realize. So I like even money, but I don't want to be too heavily invested. I want to give myself the opportunity to invest more later in the week if this number moves. But I'm okay getting the unit down here on the even money play on Ole Miss. I think they got a chance, like I said, to win this game by 40. Cousin Jen, what do you think?
So, guys, I'm just going to be completely transparent with you here. I'm going with my gut on this one. Don't have much facts to give you on this game, but I've got a gut feeling here on this game. So, the first thing what I would say about Ole Miss is Ole Miss took in tons of transfers. They worked the portal over this offseason, and Lane Kiffin, I think will. So, number one, he's kind of one to, I wouldn't say run up the score, but he has no problem letting the score run up the score. I don't know what's like. He has no problem doing that, and I think that he will definitely.
Some might call him a jerk.
Some might call him a jerk.
Some might call him other words.
Yeah, great offensive.
Some have. There you go. Absolutely, for sure.
Great offensive coordinator. I think that he can definitely rationalize keeping his players in the game longer because he has so many transfers. He's got so many new pieces, new running back, new quarterback, new line. I can definitely see him leaving those guys in longer to score more points in this game. What I would also say about Ole Miss is DJ Durkin did excellent work with that defense last year, completely turned it around from where it was 2 years ago. DJ Durkin's gone, and he did a great facelift on them for a year. I don't know if there might be some wrinkles coming back after, a year after the procedure. Maybe they need to get a touch up. Maybe does their defense take a step back this season? Wow. But here's the other thing. And okay, Troy, let's talk about Troy for a little bit. Chip Lindsey was the head coach last year. Chip Lindsey is not the head coach anymore because he was not a good maker of decisions. I was on lots of Troy unders last year because this guy would consistently punt from, in opponent's territory. He would punt with 6 minutes left, down 2 scores. He made a lot of questionable decisions. Troy's offense is not great. I'm not pretending like it is, but if they could have any semblance of a little more aggression on offense and not be nearly as conservative as they were last year, I think you're going to see a little more points on the board. So those two things combined, I think Ole Miss is just going to put up a bunch of points in this game. I don't think you need to ask a lot from Troy, but I think you're going to get enough to get the over 58 here. 58 is a fairly key number, so I like it there. I like it a little bit less if it goes to like 58.5. Definitely like 55, 56, 57 are all kind of key numbers as well, but honestly, I just don't see this line moving very much. Like, who has a lot of good intel on Troy and Ole Miss, right? So I don't think it's going to move much. So I feel good locking in the over 58.
And it kind of like what you said, I think aligns with what I said about Mississippi. I think they can run away with this game. Mississippi played a couple games last year. I want to say Tulane was one of them, where they just went out and scored 70 points and won 70-20 or something. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily predict that for this game, but Ole Miss and like you said, Lane Kiffin, great offensive mind. They're randomly going to do that at some point here in this non-conference slate. They're going to come out and score 60 points, and we're all going to be like, "Whoa!" Yeah. And they're going to easily cover a big number, and they're going to easily go over it. You can't count on that every game, but I don't know. It's on the table here with Troy for that sort of game. I don't think any of us would be surprised if this game finishes 63-14. Be like,
exactly,
yeah, okay, sure. And so I'm not. I try to split favorites and dogs. We got a little bit, throughout the week. I'm going to take, like I said, a little bit of both. Got an 8 play later on a massive dog here, but like I said, I think you got to look at both sides here. And this one, I think, just don't overthink it. Like Ole Miss is that type of team that's going to kick the crap out of teams that are not in their class, and Troy's not their class. I think Mississippi's going to run away with this one.
Yep.
And now, like I said, the line, everything I said for Mississippi lines with the over. So I think either one of those is a good way to look. Again, we talk about parlays, right? If you want to parlay those together, parlaying 2 games at different times, different games, there's no like mathematical edge, but there is sometimes a mathematical edge if you parlay games that are in the same thing right here with a side and the total, where you think that one increases the probability of the other. It goes back to that conditional probability we talked about in a different mathematical way. Yeah. Without getting us off the rails again on what's going to be way longer than I was hoping for episode. That can be to your advantage. So again, something to think about there, because the probabilities increases just a little bit if those sides are correlated. And I think that Mississippi covering the over in this case are correlated, because it's going to be Mississippi scoring 60 points is the way that happens. And then at that point, if they score 50 points, probably both of these win. And I think that's very much on the table here. To the evening games, 6:00 Eastern, Middle Tennessee at James Madison. Our first chance to look at James Madison here, now playing FBS football. They're the same team, though, for the most part as last year. They haven't magically gotten, new players for this. I do think that they'll be able to recruit a little bit better now at the FBS level, but I don't, and that probably helped them last year, maybe a little bit the year before, but I'm not really sure it's kicked in just yet. I think we're more a year or two away from that. It's the same thing with the BYUs and the Houstons of the world. Cincinnati's moving up to the Big 12 and all the other trickle-down moves, right? Those things help, but it tends to take a little bit of time. You talked about one that we have an example of, I think is a great example, is TCU. TCU dominated at the lower level and then went to the Big 12, and it took them a long time before they could really actually compete in the Big 12 because they had good first-line players who just didn't have the depth to compete at the Big 12. And I think that happens at all these levels, right? There is a little bit of that adjustment going up, that the teams are really good. They can kind of hang in there, but it's just a little bit harder. There's just that little bit of extra depth, a little bit of extra skill, whatever, that they don't quite have. It takes them a while to get. That's my thoughts on James Madison. They're 6-point favorites at home against Middle Tennessee. A decent Middle Tennessee team, which surprises me. I mean, they're not obviously amazing, but I mean, they're a decent team. James Madison's a good team too. We're applying all the same methodologies we would apply with the FCS stuff. So it's a little bit of question marks because we're not quite comparing all the same teams, but based off of those methodologies, the model thinks that this should be James Madison minus 1.5. Says basically that Middle Tennessee may be slightly better on a neutral field. So it gives James Madison a little bit of an edge here being at home. Getting 6 points, I think, is way too much. I would have thought this is James Madison minus 3. I'm really surprised it's 6. I think we're getting a lot of value here at minus 108. It's a negative play for me. I got a lot of question marks with James Madison. Give me the points. I don't know what's going to happen. James Madison may win by 30, but they may lose this game. So give me the points. I think moneyline makes a lot of sense in this game as well. We talked about this with baseball. Increase the variability on plus odds getting points. Absolutely is what you love. You just don't want variability when you're laying points or laying big odds on the money line. You don't want variability. You want to know exactly what's going to happen. And Tim, I'm confident here. I don't know what's going to happen. So give me money line at big plus odds. Give me the 6 points. Because I don't know what's going to happen in this game. So points or plus odds in the money line, I think, makes a lot of sense here. What do you got, Cousin Jared?
Yeah, so just to let y'all into my sick, twisted mind. So my family takes a week vacation every summer, and I always have my Athlon college sports preview. Look at that, even Southeast Conference A&M.
This is not a paid promotion.
This is not a paid promotion for Athlon.
They're not paying us.
Trust me, I'm not getting paid anything. So, but every summer on my week-long vacation, I read this thing cover to cover. And a team that caught my attention this offseason was Middle Tennessee. They had a true freshman quarterback that only played 4 full games, passed for 1,300 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 3 INTs, 3 interceptions in
4 games,
in only 4 full games. And I said,
that's better than probably a dozen quarterbacks did in 12 last year.
Yes, and I said to myself, that's interesting. Now look at their schedule. They lost to Virginia Tech. Okay, Virginia Tech's relative to Middle Tennessee State, pretty good team. UTSA, good team. Lost a shootout to Charlotte. Charlotte. Lost to Liberty. Liberty was pretty decent last year. Lost to Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky was good last year.
Very good.
And they lost to Old Dominion by a touchdown. they won 7 games. It's like, hey, this team's better than I thought they were. Yeah, exactly. So I saw this line and I said, what do I know about James Madison? Yeah, they're good for an FCS team, but I don't know what they're going to be at the FBS level. So it was a team in Middle Tennessee where I thought they might be a little underrated, and then James Madison, who I thought might be a little overrated. And then seeing that the model kind of agrees that James Madison should only be favored by 1.5, this was an easy call for me. I am also going to be taking the 6 points with Middle Tennessee State here. That's an official play for me. Obviously, I would love for this to be 7, but I'm more concerned about this number going down to 5.5 and not getting to 6 than I am about getting it to 7. So okay. Lock it in here for me. I think +6 with Middle Tennessee. That seems great to me.
Yep, a great play for me on the same thing. I love that one as well. 7 p.m. Eastern, Miami of Ohio at Kentucky. Another one I want to get early just because I liked it at 17, and I just don't want this to go up to something stupid like 20. It may drop. You never really know again what these numbers are going to do. I have no idea. In general, my hunches for the most part, the numbers are going to get a little bit bigger throughout the week on most of these because the public is going to come in and play more favorites. But I think Kentucky's a little bit short on this one. Model says that this should be Kentucky minus 20.5. I'm surprised it's not 20. We talked about Kentucky. We aren't as high on them as they were last year, but that doesn't really matter because what we were talking about there was relative to the other SEC teams that they're going to play, not compared to Miami of Ohio. Like, they're going to have their way with this Miami of Ohio team. They should win big. I don't have any insight to if they're going to run it up late or anything like that, other than I just think they're a whole lot better than Miami of Ohio. I guess the number should be higher. I'm okay laying 17. It's an A-grade play for me. And like I said, I'm locking it in earlier in the week just because I don't want it to be 17.5 and me kick myself that we don't have that push protection if they do accidentally win by exactly 17. Cousin Jared, what do you think?
Don't have anything great to say about this game. Go check out our season preview on the SEC. Kentucky was one of my season long plays. Go listen to that. You'll get a lot of insight into what I think about Kentucky this season. The only thing I would say about this game, it's not an official play for me, but if you're eyeing the under here, it's currently available at 52.5 some places. 52 is a key number. So if you're looking at the under, I would recommend going out and grabbing that 52.5 now because 52.5 right now. There's a lot of 52s out there and there's a lot of 51.5s. So if you want the under, you definitely want to be under that 52.5 instead of 52 or 51.5. So again, not an official play for me, but if that's something you're interested in, I would recommend grabbing that 52.5 now.
It's interesting you say that without even knowing what the total was. I hadn't even looked at the totals. I was thinking to myself, I was like, something like 34-17 would be like a pretty reasonable score for this one. That's why I said I wanted to lock in 17. I'm not sure if that adds up to 51, which is exactly what we're talking about there. Looking at that under. So funny how those things work. 7:30 Eastern, one more game in the not super late time slot here for us on Saturday night. SMU at North Texas. SMU is an 11-point favorite on the road. SMU's a good team. We talked about them as well. I don't understand this number. We talked earlier a little bit. I'm like you. I like playing teams in week 1 who played in week 0. Yeah. Give them a little bit of a boost for getting some of the jitters out of the way, getting some of the, coach figuring out some things. I mean, all these coaches, very rarely does a coach know exactly what they're going to do. I mean, every once in a while he gets that lucky and this is exactly what I'm going to do. This is exactly who I'm going to play. This is exactly my rotations, right? A lot of times they're looking at things too. Helps the coaches out now. They've seen them. They kind of know like, hey, this guy did exactly what I wanted. This guy didn't. I tried someone else in the second half. It works a lot better. All that other nonsense, right? Like X's and O's helps them out a lot. I like these teams who played the first week. This like confuses the heck out of me. SMU's a good team, but North Texas is pretty solid as well at home. SMU should be favored, but not by 11. The model says it should be 6.7. I was expecting this to be 7. Not just based off of the model. I was just like seeing like SMU North Texas. I was like, oh, SMU's better for sure. We talked about the difference between and maybe let's go back to the difference between American and Conference USA with that conversation we had earlier. It's the same type of thing. SMU should be favored, but like I don't see how you get to 11 here. Like the differences between the conferences on the road isn't that much. Again, I think this number should be 7 plus 11. I'm blocking it now because 11 is a possible outcome. So getting that push protection there makes a lot of sense. It's an A-grade play for me. It'd still be an A-grade play at 10. Just 11 is just a bonus.
Exactly.
Way too many points. I just don't understand this at all. I'm all over with Texas here plus 11. I'm not sure I'd play money line. Maybe just a tiny bit just for some fun. I just think North Texas can hang in there, and you got backdoor opportunities. I mean, like I said, probably lose by 3, 4, 7, 10. There's a lot of ways they can lose. Like I said, not as excited about the money line here as maybe something like Middle Tennessee State, but I think they can hang in there and cover this number of 11? Because generally, yeah.
So I've got a lot of thoughts on this game, but just being completely honest with you here, viewer, I think I may have a crush on North Texas. I think Bill.
I'm with you. I'm with you. They're fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, they crushed UTEP. And when you go back and look at the end of last season and how they played in that first game, it's like, how is this 11 points? Like, there's nothing logical about it. SMU, they
riding them at the end of last season, like they were really good to us. Like you said, I'm kind of like saying crushed. Like they've been really good to us. And we talk about baseball. We love the Mariners and the Guardians, right? They've been so good to us, right? It's like, UNT's been good to us. I'm liking it. Like, let's keep it rolling,
Yeah, exactly. And SMU, I think SMU is going to be good, by AAC standards, but new coach coming in, Rhett Lashley's the new coach there. Dyke's going to TCU. I just think there's a little bit of question marks. SMU would say this is not a big rivalry game. UNT would probably disagree with that, and so I think you're going to get a lot of effort out of UNT. I think they're going to be playing 110% for sure. I mean, if UNT plays the way that they want to, they're going to control the ball. It's going to be tough for SMU to get up by 11 if North Texas plays the type of game they want to play. And if the quarterback from North Texas, I don't think I'm saying his name right. I thought it was Ani. I could be wrong. The stadium app was going in and out whenever I was watching the game. So maybe if he plays like he did against UTEP, North Texas might win this game. He played really well. All those things that I talked about, why I like the under in that game, he kind of, I wouldn't say dispelled it all, but he played a lot better than I expected him to in that game.
He did. The game went under despite his best efforts to otherwise. It went under because that
North Texas defense
had some lockdown moments and some clutch plays and just grinded it out, played great. Yeah, it wasn't about UNT's offense. I mean, it was about their defense.
Exactly. So I am all over North Texas here as well, getting the 11 points. Again, can't believe it's 11 points. And just a preview, not an official play as of yet, just because there's it's not a super key number, but the total on this game is 70. And so the way that North Texas defense played against UTEP, I know it's just UTEP, but the way that they played, and if North Texas controls the clock like I know they want to do, this game is going to have a really difficult time getting to 70. So, again, stay with us watch the rest of our episodes throughout the week. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on BetStamp. I have a feeling I might eventually be on the under in this game at some point as well.
And we talk about like part of our goal in this episode, just give y'all things to think about through the week as you're hearing other people talk, as you're doing your own research. And we're going to find out a lot about how smart these coaches are, because SMU wants to get this into a shootout, and North Texas has to know those guys know more than we do about their players and all this nonsense, right? They have to be sitting there knowing that is not the way they're going to win this game. And they know that getting into a shootout isn't going to be to their advantage. So I'm like you, like if they can have, everyone knows this too. And sometimes you can't always execute your game plan, but I mean, to me, I'm looking at it going, they've got to be thinking all week in practice here. How are we going to slow this game down? How are we going to slow it down and still execute our offense, not get them out of sync, but also not have too many 3-and-out 30-second drives and give them the ball right back. Keep our defense rested, grind this game out, make it ugly. And if it turns into it, the whole game won't be ground out for sure. SMU's not going to let that happen. But if one quarter grinds to a halt, 70 is going to be tough to get to, right? You're just going to need that stretch of 15 minutes where there's only one touchdown and no field goals. And you're like, now you're feeling good about having going under such a high number like that.
Right.
And the last thing I want to talk about, I live in Denton as well. I'm a professor at the other university in town, not UNT. But seeing the billboards around town, hearing the talk around the town, that sort of thing, you're absolutely right. Like SMU thinks that North Texas is beneath them, and they do not think they're in their class. And whether that's realistic or accurate or not is completely beside the point. I can just tell you the perception from both TCU and SMU. Now TCU's in the Big 12, so we got a little justified, but I mean, that's been the aura around this area has been for TCU has been we're better than everybody else, and SMU is we're better than everybody else but TCU. And they think they're better than everybody else. And UNT, I mean, I'm like you, they're going to come out with a chip on their shoulder because this is a recruiting type, hey, you're in the DFW area, you want to come play for us, not for them, because look, we just won this game. So
exactly,
I'm like you. My question for this, I want to ask real quick for this one and the UTSA one. Talking about the fans, I think it's going to be a real interesting setup, right? UTSA playing in the Alamo Dome. a lot of fans from a lot of the students came out for those games last year, but like you said, there's a lot of seats in that place. You should have a lot of Houston fans traveling. Same thing here. You should have a lot of SMU fans at a fairly large stadium at North Texas. I think that's a really interesting question. I don't know if you have any other thoughts. Really interesting to see, are these 75? I could kind of be convinced it'll be 75-25, 50-50. I could be convinced of a lot of splits here. It'll be really interesting to see how that plays out, and if that has any effect, or if the bigger effect is just the travel and the players and not sleeping in their own beds, or not their staying in a hotel, that sort of thing. But I mean, the fan splits on both of those games could be really interesting, I think.
Yeah, and at least with Houston, like, it's actual like trip. I think you go from Houston to San Antonio. Like, this is like 2
to 3 hour drive, depending on where you live.
Well, and but here in North Texas and SMU, like, it's players going to be sleeping in their own bed. They hop on a bus for I don't know. I don't live in the DFW area, but like 45 minutes, like an hour maybe. Like, it's not going to be a long trip. So
depends on the traffic.
That does diminish the home field advantage for North Texas a little bit, I think. But I'm like you. I think it's going to be maybe 75-25. I think it's going to be a really good game. This is one that I don't know what channel it's going to be on. Got to go look it up, because this is one I'm going to be watching on Saturday night.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one last note on this. Again, the model says 6.7 for SMU. The model is, I did give UNT a full home field advantage. You could, like you said, you could argue with that. I'm not trying to get too cutesy with this. We will talk about some of the home field advantages at the end of this episode with our last game, and we'll talk about a few of the other ones on the neutral site games. I don't try to get cute with something like this. But yes, you could absolutely argue that maybe they shouldn't get a full home field advantage. I totally would agree with that. But that if that were the case, and you should say it should be SMU minus 7.5 or 8, there's still a lot of value at 11, knowing that 7's still right around that number. And of course, 10, SMU could easily win by 10, or if they win by 11, they get the push. So a lot of value there either way, even if UNT shouldn't have quite the home field advantage as usual. I still think it's probably not a big deal.
Yep.
So the 3 late games we're going to talk about here on this show. Boise State at Oregon State. This was going to be late. We talked about last week. We opened up. We talked about, what are we doing with our lives staying up late? This one's going to be like, I'm going to be wanting to stay up late and watch this one. And it's going to be like, hopefully I prep myself last week. So this week I'm like, I'm in mid-season form. I can do this. Because last week I have to tell y'all, I was like trying to pump the caffeine towards the end. I was like, I got to stand up to watch this game. I'm going to fall asleep on the couch here. But this is when you're going to want to stay up for. Boise State at Oregon State should be a fantastic matchup here, a great one to kick us off here for the late night games. Oregon State's a 3-point home favorite. I think that's way too much. Give me the field goal with Boise State all day, every day. I think Boise State +3. I think Boise State on the money line makes a lot of sense. It's an A-grade play for me. The model thinks Boise State should be 1.5 to 2 point road favorites. Boise is confusing. The Pac-12 is confusing. I don't really care. I'm getting a field goal in a game that should be a really great game. I think getting the field goal or the money line just makes a lot of sense, because I don't know what's going to happen. And so absolutely, I want a field goal in my back pocket, or I want plus odds on the money line. I think makes a lot of sense. I think there's a lot of value on this, because I think there's not a lot of things that would really happen in this game to surprise me. I think Boise State's a really good team. I don't think they're getting quite the respect they deserve. So like I said, I like being on them given the situation. If it's a pick 'em, different story. But getting +3 or the plus on the money line is way too much to pass up. It's an A-grade play for me on the Broncos at Oregon State. Cousin Jared, what do you got?
So always important to keep in mind that the model is not biased at all. I, however, am very biased, and Boise State drove me crazy last year.
Jack warned us. Jack warned us from the very start.
He did. He did.
It's been like a 10-year thing with Boise, just being confusing.
Yeah. So Boise State drives me crazy, and I have an irrational love for Oregon State for sure. So maybe at some point this week, the evidence becomes overwhelming to me that I have to side with Boise State, but I just haven't quite got there yet. What I would say is Oregon State's defense could potentially be a sieve at times last year. I was on there over a couple of times. Right now you can get over 56, like over 56.5 at some places. Like, I like it. I think I would rather just wait. And if I convince myself that the over is the way to go, I'd wait all the way to 57.5, play it before it got to 58.
You mean under?
No, I mean over.
You just mean let it go up and you don't care because 57 doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. Like, if you feel strongly about it, you should probably play it at 56, which is where it's at some places right now. A lot of places are at 56.5. Again,
you're saying you don't care about 56.5, like no big deal.
Yeah,
57.5.
Yeah, and I haven't convinced myself that I want to play the over 56. But if that's what you're wanting, I would grab the over 56 now. If I convince myself later in the week, I would play it all the way up to like 57.5, probably. Definitely before I got to 58. Man, like I said, the model, when it feels this strongly, it's hard to go against it. But Boise State just drove me crazy last year. So I haven't gotten to a place yet where I feel confident about any side or total in this game yet.
Yeah, like I said, and I'm just taking the point spread picks here just because it's easier to code in and put up make a pick on every game and put up in the sheet. But I mean, I'm just telling you, money line would be the play I'd be making here. Like I said, I love the plus odds, and who the heck knows what's going to happen in this game. Boise State, I think most people would agree, is the better team. Obviously, it's in Oregon State, that matters. But Boise State's the better team on the road. I think that balances out. Plus odds makes a lot of sense here. Like I said, I'd make Boise State money line probably like minus 115, minus 120, maybe minus 125 even. So getting plus odds, and that makes a lot of sense. I just want to ask you real quick about the totals. Again, just giving the people something to think about. We've seen at times, I'm curious how scared you are of this or how often you're checking back on this. We've seen some of these kind of dead earn numbers. We've seen some of them fly quickly on some of these totals. We don't see it as much with the spreads, which I think is interesting. The point spreads, which I think is interesting. But the totals, we've seen some of these go from a 56 up to a 59 or a 59 to a 56, like in the blink of an eye. And of course they won't move that quickly or from 56 down past 55, because that's obviously a much more key number like we've talked about, right? But I'm just curious, like how nervous you are about the crossing that and then missing it, and all of a sudden it going from 56.5, not just to 57.5, but up to like 58.5. And you're like, dang, now I missed 58 too. Yeah. How often are you checking? I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts are there.
I checked a lot. But what I would say was, I'll answer the question that I wish you had asked. I feel like unders are the most the smartest play in sports up until the game is actually being played, and then it's miserable.
For sure. That's why it's a smart play, because people hate doing it.
Yes. And so, like, for 3.5 hours, whatever it is, you were just a miserable person, and then you just hope that a win comes out of it. And so it's the same thing. Like, I sit there and I got so frustrated last week with that North Texas total being at 55.5 until like 2 hours before we were recording, and then it went down to 54.5. And I had to sit on it for 4 days. It stayed at 54.5, went down to 54, and then it randomly, like you said, went from 54 back up to 55. And that's when I grabbed it, and I was checking it like late at night. Like, literally, I was checking it before I laid down to go to sleep. I was checking it
first thing in the morning.
I locked it in. So I check it pretty often, especially when it's around those key numbers. Like, for example, like the North Texas SMU around 70. Like, I'm not going to be checking that much. I mean, I would want to play it below 69, but I would want to play it below 69. I wouldn't want it to go below that. But 71, like, not that big a deal. I won't check that one as much. When it's around like 52, 55, 58, 61, 62, 47, 48. Yeah, that's when I'm checking it more often.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's an interesting thing to be thinking about here, because in general, like you said, I agree with you. I think under makes a lot of sense. That's why dogs make more sense too, right? You don't want to blindly play them because you're probably not going to be enough to be profitable on taking dogs or unders. But in general, they are a smarter way to look, because, like you said, they're kind of miserable plays. People hate doing them. And so that creates value, because if just you just get some average money on their side, it can just kind of balance you out a little bit, as scary as they are. Another one at the 10:30 Eastern slot, one that won't be as interesting, but I think there's money to be made on it. And like we always say, you don't have to watch them to make the monies. Kent State, I'm grabbing 21.5 points. It's an A grade play for me. I'm locking it in now. Like I said, I'll take some dogs. I'll take some favorites. I like that we're getting the hook here, and I want to lock this in with the hook. I don't want this to go down to 21. It may go up again. I have no idea. And in general, like I said, I'm waiting on more of my dog plays until later in the week, because I don't think the numbers are going to go. I think on average, I think they're going to just get bigger. Not every single game. This one also may get bigger, but again, I don't mind if it gets bigger and it gets to 22.5 or 23, whatever. The main thing is I want the hook here on the 21. Washington could easily win this game 21-0. I'm not sure Washington can score more than 21 points. So 21.5, I think, makes a lot of sense for me here. So it's an A grade play for me there. On Kent State, the model says 17.5 is the right number. So a pretty good value here. I'm taking all these points with Kent State. I don't know what I'm going to get from Washington. I really have no idea. So just give me all the points and then I can move on. Washington may win this game 59-0. I don't know, but again, it's a lot of points for a Washington. And not that Kent State's good, but Washington's got a lot of question marks around them. Not sure at all what we're going to get from here in game one. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I don't do this too often, but I'm going to pull a Coach Corso on you here and say, not so fast, my friend.
Okay.
So Washington, the head coach there, Kalen DeBoer, came from Fresno State. Obviously, Fresno State had a great offense the past couple of years with Jake Haener, and maybe more importantly, Michael Penix is the quarterback for the starting the first game. Transferred from Indiana, was really good at times.
It was really good, but too many injuries.
You can't be injured in the first game of the season. Is all I'm
not true. Not true at all.
Okay, excuse me. He cannot come into the game injured. I know for sure he is starting. I know for sure.
Also, not true. You never know.
Okay.
That guy said so many. What he's if he's watching the show, he's like, hold my beer.
Yeah, I'm 95% confident that he's going to find a way to start this game. Okay, and so maybe he won't play the whole game. I feel fairly confident that he will start this game. This game to me feels like the Washington-Arkansas State game last year, where against all facts that were out there, the Arkansas State defense was so bad that I played the over, and somehow that game managed to go over there, even with how pathetic Washington's offense was last year. And I don't remember the offense coordinator's first name. His last name was Donovan. He was terrible. He got let go. I think their offense is going to be light years ahead of what it was last year, especially with Penix, at least early in the season, if he's healthy. So where I'm going with that is I would be leaning towards the over here. I don't like the number. It's at 59. A lot of places it's at 60. I'm definitely not playing it there. If this got down to like 58, I'm hoping everybody thought just what you said was like, hey, is Washington going to be able to score 21 points? If it gets down to 58, 57 and a half, something like that.
By the way, that was sarcasm. They can score 21 pretty easily.
Well. I mean,
I didn't say will. I said can.
Last year, I had lots of questions about that. So anyway, if this total comes down, it's definitely something I'd be eyeing the over. I have faith in DeBoer and Penix, especially the first game of the season, and Kent State's defense. Remember, keep in mind, this was the same Kent State team that the bowl game went over 55.5 against Wyoming. Okay. Just throwing that out there. They went over easily.
Yeah, so, I don't need Kent State facts at this point. Okay. Look, we're like over an hour into this episode. I don't need Kent State facts. I don't want to hear them.
Okay.
I mean, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Next game.
Well, I was gonna say I was gonna wrap up here on this. My thought on this one is, you're absolutely right. New coordinator, they're going to be better. My question is, are they going to be that good in week one? Are they going to have all the kinks worked out? Now, obviously, it's a soft landing spot against Kent State. So if you still have some kinks, this is the time to work them out. But I think that's the thing is this is the game to work them out in the game, not that they'll have them worked out ahead of time. So I think that matters. Also, you talk about a quarterback who's had a lot of injuries. If they're up, 35-7, that's why I said I love the hook here. I love the hook because if they're up 35-7 in the fourth quarter, he ain't playing the rest of the game.
Right.
Washington's going to go into turtle offense, and Kent State's going to have a lot of opportunities for that backdoor cover. There's a lot of ways we can win this. I think again, I'm with you. Washington's offense will be improved. I have questions about it in week one. I don't know how it'll play out. If this was Washington playing a better team, laying a number, I'd say, hey, they're going to play the offense full game. They might be, they're going to be a whole lot more exciting offensively. So question marks maybe lean the other way, but at this point, I just think it's too many points for week one. Kent State's really bad, but I'll hope that they don't get embarrassed. And hopefully they don't lose as bad as Hawaii, who's the next game we're going to talk about here, kicking off around midnight Eastern, playing host to Western Kentucky. We talked about, I texted the group, Cousin Jared, you, me, and Jake have a group. We talk about some of these things. And I think I texted the group before the Hawaii Vanderbilt game. I said the line at that point was Western Kentucky minus 12.5. And I was like, man, that tells you how bad. I mean, Western Kentucky's probably going to take a step back this year, right? We don't think they'll be as good. They lost everybody, basically. Yeah. We talked about them briefly on the season preview episodes. And I was like, man, if Western Kentucky's a 12.5 point favorite, Vanderbilt's 7-9, I'm like, man, I thought that was interesting. I was like, that says a lot. And all of a sudden now after Hawaii, I don't think played's the right word. There was a game, I think. Yes. I don't know. Something happened. Hawaii looked great for the first 14 minutes of that game and apparently forgot that there were another 46 minutes. After that, thing that happened. Now, Western Kentucky's a 16-point favorite, and my goodness, I'm all over the 16. I'm laying this in a heartbeat. I'm laying it now. I'm making a prediction on like 6 games. I'm probably going to be right on 4 of them, probably wrong on the other 2 about where the line's going to go. I'm afraid this number goes to 17. I'm afraid this number goes to 20. I'm afraid this number goes to 512 because that's probably where it should be. Hawaii is really, really, really bad. Yeah. We knew they would be really bad. We knew that they were losing like all of their players. And my argument last week was those guys were awful. How much worse could it be? Well, I have my answer. It's a lot. Yeah. Vanderbilt absolutely might be a lot improved. And they might now only be like the 100th best team instead of the 110th best team or whatever. They might even be the 80th best team. They're still probably not very good.
Right.
But they may be a little bit on Vandy, but I mean, that was a lot on Hawaii. That defense, we talk about, we lost all the guys on defense. Like, the defense was bad. Like there's some replacement level theory, right? That the guys behind them have to have some talent. I don't know. Apparently, the replacement level theory really probably only works better in professional sports and not college, because the guys that they were replacing with looked like they were out of high school, maybe still in high school. I mean, I don't want to rate too much longer here, but I mean, Western Kentucky all over the 16. The model now has Hawaii as the 3rd worst team. Give it a week, I think they'll be the worst team. Like I said, I saw a pulse from New Mexico State. New Mexico State didn't look great, and they turned the ball over a lot.
UConn had some spunk.
Right? And part of people talk about like, well, where UConn and New Mexico State went bad and whatnot. It was like, that's part of it. They're a bad team, right? They're going to turn the ball over. They're going to have whatever. That's part of it. I mean, they still at least had something that Hawaii did not even have. I think that Hawaii has we talked about, we both love Hawaii. We both played with them on NCAA football way too much. I think eventually they're going to return to being decent, but that is the furthest thing that they are from right now. The model says it should be 17.2, but like I said, I think the model is slow to adjust because it doesn't want to overreact, but I'm going to overreact and say Hawaii having a game under their belt. We talked about liking that. I don't think it helps them at all because I would just be depressed. I mean, that was, again, we talked about it. That was their kind of their Super Bowl. That was their one game at home against an SEC team. They were only 7-point underdogs for most of the week. They were supposed to hang in there. We talked about maybe accidentally getting bowl eligible if all the close games went their way. I mean, these are the things that they had to be thinking about. And after that, they have to be thinking like, are we going to win a game? Are we going to, other than they play Duquesne, they'll win that one. Are they going to win a game other than Duquesne? And the answer might be no. I mean, so many bad thoughts at this point for everybody there. I think Western Kentucky's going to go in there and kick the crap out of them. I love the 16. I'm locking it in before it goes to 17. It's a great play for me. Cousin Jared, what do you got?
I don't have anything on this game. I hope both teams have fun, and I hope nobody gets hurt.
Nobody gets hurt, exactly.
Like that's all I have on this game.
I reiterate, you don't have to watch them to make the monies. I will not be staying for this one.
Let's give a little more detail there. You probably won't be able to watch this game. That was the only nationally televised Hawaii game for the season. The rest of them are pay-per-view.
But last year they were on like.
They're free.
Really?
There is some free app you can download here in the continental US where you can watch.
Last year they were on Facebook.
Okay, so
last year they were on Facebook. I was like on Facebook Watch, and then I would stream that to my TV because what else are you doing at 1 a.m.
Yeah, and you know what? This year at 1 a.m. what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go to sleep. So
I'm gonna go to sleep.
You're not watching Hawaii this year.
Yeah, I agree. We love Hawaii. Your football team is terrible though.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I hope they have fun, and I hope nobody gets too depressed. Sports are brutal. If any of the Hawaii football players are watching, I just have to say I encourage you to make sure you take care of your mentals because that's going to be a long season. And I'm with you. I hope nobody gets hurt. I hope nobody gets hurt all the time, but especially there because those guys just look really outmatched. Sunday night, we got some weekend games here. I guess Labor Day snuck up on me. Sunday night here, 7:30 Eastern, Florida State at LSU in New Orleans. And you'll see in the sheet, I have indicated this in the info. I've put this as a neutral game in quotes. So the reason I'm putting it in quotes, I'm trying to indicate to y'all that I am only giving LSU half of their normal home field advantage. The reason I'm giving them half instead of a full is, I don't know. I had to pick something. It's somewhere between half and full. There will be a lot of Florida State fans there, obviously. but it will be more LSU fans than anything else. The travel is better. The reason I'm giving them half the home field advantage is because they still have to travel themselves. They're still in a different locker room themselves. They're still on a different playing surface themselves, all that other stuff, right? The little things that go into home field advantage. Home field advantage has been diminished here over the years. It's not the 3.5, 4 points that it used to be. It's low twos, really, for most teams. And so because of that, there's still all those little things that go into it. Some of that's still happening here. So I'm giving LSU half of their normal home field advantage in a game that's being played in New Orleans. The model says, even with that said, that LSU should be 6.3 point favorites. The model says 6 or 6.5. I'm laying the 3 A-grade play. For me, it's one of the bigger games of the weekend. This number, I have no idea what's going to do. It'll be fascinating to watch what happens with this number. But I want to lock in 3 right now because I think it should be higher. That doesn't mean it will. Again, most of the time the number goes towards where the model says, but it's not always true. So I just want to lock in the 3 now. It's an A-grade play for me. I'd also play the money line on the short price here. I don't know what I'm going to get from Florida State, but I think LSU will be decent. I think LSU wins this game. So it's kind of like the thoughts on Houston, except for the fact that here I'm only having to lay 3 instead of 4. Anything can happen in sports, but I just think LSU's a much better team, and they go out and win this game. So I'm going to lay 3 in a heartbeat, and I'm not going to think twice about this one. And I want to lock it in before it goes to 3.5 or 4 because I think, again, the model says 6. But at minimum, I feel like it should be 4. I just don't understand why the number is what it is. It's, if people are treating it like it's a true neutral site game, but LSU's travel is shorter, and I think there'll be more fans there for them. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you got for us on this one?
So what I will say is I am not backing Florida State in this situation. I don't have much faith in them. The problem is LSU hasn't named a starting quarterback yet. If it's Jaden Daniels, I don't think I have a lot of faith in him. If it's Nussmeier, like maybe I have a little more faith in them. But like until I know who the starting quarterback is for LSU, I'm not picking a side on this game. And I think the total it's 51.5. Like whatever, nothing really exciting there. So as of right now, no play for me. Maybe after they name a starting quarterback, I can reevaluate. Definitely like LSU playing in New Orleans, like it feels. Only laying 3 points.
It's more like
it feels like LSU is the side here, but until I know who's starting, which again I don't think they've announced yet, I'm staying away for now.
And this is maybe you could talk to this, or maybe someone in the comments can. I don't. Maybe they could explain this line to me. Is there more Florida State hype than I realize? I mean, I don't think any of us think that LSU is going to win the national championship this year, but like I again, the model thinks that LSU is, 4-ish points better than Florida State on a neutral field. And I'm like, doesn't that seem right? Like, I don't understand. Like, are people out there really thinking that Florida State's going to be a better team than LSU? Then they may win more games because the schedule, ACC and SEC, very different, right? So they may win more games, but like, what have we seen from Florida State the last several years to indicate that they're going to be a better team than even a mediocre SEC team? Like, I just, can you explain that to me? Can someone in the comments explain this to me? I don't know what I don't get it.
Yeah, I would answer your question by referencing LSU week 1 last year against UCLA, where I was all over LSU and they just got like road graded by UCLA, which UCLA was just like, they were fine last year, but they weren't like amazing or anything like that. So I guess I don't have an answer to your specific question, but I feel like people are probably thinking more to last year's LSU team more than they're thinking about what this year's Florida State team is.
Yeah. Again, LSU wasn't that impressive last year. But it's not like Florida State was either. Like, I just don't – I don't know. If you're talking about the Florida State of old, or you're talking it may be a different team, I guess I get it. Again, I'm not that high on LSU. I'm not that high on Florida State either. I'm like, both these teams feel very like meh, okay, solid, meh for their standards, what we're used to, but not teams that I'm overly high on. But I just don't, like I said, I just don't see it. And that doesn't mean by the end of the year that the power ratings will have Florida State higher than LSU. Right. Just for right now, I'm like, I just feel like you have to say LSU's a better team. And then you got, like you said, a quasi home game, a half home game, whatever you want to call it. Laying 3 just seems really short. So like I said, I'm all over LSU. I don't think there's any such thing as bait. I don't think the sports books are thinking about that. I think the sports books are trying to make the most accurate line as possible. And they think in the long run, whether the books are balanced or not, they're going to win money if they have accurate lines. I think that's their goal. I've heard people who make the lines say those exact words. So I don't think there's any bait, but if this was bait, I'll take it. I'll take LSU minus 3
Yeah.
if that is a thing. Because I'm like, if
Yeah.
it's bait, fine, I'll fall for it. Like I just don't see this one personally. And now LSU, of course, going to lose by 30 points. But that's sports gambling for you in a nutshell, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
We're gonna lose a lot, but hopefully win more than we lose, right? It's all that matters, right?
Exactly.
All right. We have talked for way too long.
Cousin
Jared, do you have any parting words, or have you said them all?
Nope. We got 2 more shows this week. I got plenty of time to say more words.
We do 2 more shows. One of them we'll have Jake on. Again, I think we're going to cover every game. I think we're going to try to cover every single game this season. Even the Hawaii New Mexico State game. We're going to go. I think that will be the game of the year. I'm looking forward to it. It's circled on my calendar. Hawaii, New Mexico State.
Just let the record show that I was never told we were going to cover every game this season until like 2 hours ago in our chat. So this is news to me as well.
You got
to have something.
This is my show. It's my show. I can do what I want.
It is your show, and you got to have goals. You got to have something to try.
If we're gonna do 3 shows a week, we might as well. Like if we can't cover like 50 of the 55 games and leave 5 games. At least we have to say like 1 minute on those other 5 games, right? We're not going to talk in depth about a lot of these teams. We're going to just we're going to say at least 5 words minimum on every single game. That's my promise to you, viewer.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. If the viewers that are still left, I don't know who's still watching at this point. We've talked a little bit too long. We're signing off. That's all we've got for you today. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Picks with the Professor. Reminder, check out the Google Sheet for model picks, projections, and results. You can find that link and more at the website, www.pickswiththeprofessor.com. If you haven't done so yet, please click that subscribe button to ensure all the sports betting content we provide on this channel is dropped right into your feed. A lot of content right now with baseball and all of the college football episodes. We'll see you again later in the week for episode 2 of week 1. And I'll see you again all week for more MLB action. Best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.